I had just finished a long day of mining and gathering resources, and was preparing to log off for the night. My base, a sturdy wooden house built into the sound of a mountain, was well lit and secure. Or so I thought. As I was about to close the game, a strange noise caught my attention. It wasn't the usual sounds of zombies groaning or skeletons rattling their bones. This was different. More like a whisper carried on the wind. I shook my head, dismissing it as a trick of my tired mind, and logged off. But the next day, curiosity got the better of me. I logged back in, determined to find the source of the noise. I started my day as usual, tending to my crops and checking on my livestock. But as the sun began to set, I felt a shiver run down my spine. It was back. I decided to investigate, leaving the safety of my base and venturing into the surrounding forest. The trees cast long shadows, and the whispering seemed to be coming from everywhere at once. I drew my sword, ready to defend myself against any hostile mobs I could encounter, but the forest was eerily silent. As I ventured deeper, I noticed something unusual. The animals were all gone. No cows, no pigs, not even a single chicken. It was as if the forest had been abandoned. My heart pounded in my chest as the whispering grew louder, almost like it was calling my name. Suddenly, I saw it, a figure standing in the distance, barely visible through the thick foliage. It was humanoid, but something about it was off. Its body was pitch black, darker than the night itself, and its eyes glowed a sinister red. I froze, unable to move, as the entity slowly turned to face me. Before I could react, it disappeared, melting into the shadows. I stood there, heart racing, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. Was it a new mob? Was it a glitch? I had no answers, only a growing sense of dread. I hurried back to my base, constantly looking over my shoulder. Once inside, I barricaded the doors and lit every corner of the house. The whispering had stopped, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Over the next few days, strange things began to happen. Blocks would disappear from my house. Items would go missing from my chest. And I would find cryptic messages written in redstone on my walls. I see you. You can't hide. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself that it was just a prank or some kind of bug. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The entity, whatever it was still out there, watching me. One night, as I was mining deep underground, I heard the whispering again. It echoed through the tunnels, growing louder and more insistent. I turned around, and there it was. The entity stood at the end of the tunnel, its red eyes boring into mine. I panicked, dropping my pickaxe and running as fast as I could. The tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, the walls closing in around me. I heard the entity's footsteps behind me. It was toying with me, savoring my fear. I finally burst out into an open cavern, gasping for breath. I turned around, ready to face the entity, but it was gone. The whispering had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. I knew I couldn't keep running forever. I had to confront the entity and find out what it wanted. I spent the next few days preparing, gathering weapons and supplies. I enchanted my armor and brewed potions. I was determined to face the entity head on. The next time I heard the whispering, I followed it. It led me deep into the forest, to a hidden cave I had never seen before. The entrance was covered in vines, and the air was thick. I entered the cave, sword in hand. The whispering grew louder, guiding me deeper into darkness. I lit torches along the way, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Finally, I reached a large chamber at the heart of the cave. The entity stood in the center, waiting for me. Its red eyes glowed with malice, and its form seemed to shift in the dim light. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice echoing off the walls. "What do you want?" The entity didn't answer. Instead, it raised a hand, and the ground beneath me began to shake. I barely had time to react as the floor crumbled away, plunging me into darkness. I landed hard, the impact knocking the wind out of me. I scrambled to my feet, disoriented and in pain. I was in another chamber, much deeper underground. The air was thick with the smell of sulfur, and the walls were lined with strange symbols. The whispering was louder than ever, taking control of my mind. I tried to focus, to find a way out, but the symbols on the walls seemed to pulse with a dark energy, drawing me in. Suddenly, the entity was there, standing right in front of me. It reached out and I felt a cold, clawed hand close around my throat. I struggled, but its grip was too strong. "Why are you doing this?" I gasped. The entity's eyes flared, and I felt a wave of fear wash over me. "You trespassed." Its voice echoing in my mind. "You disturbed the balance. Now, you must pay the price." I realized with a sinking feeling that this wasn't just a random encounter. The entity had been watching me all along, waiting for the right moment to strike. I had unknowingly entered its territory, and now it was exacting its revenge. I fought with everything I had, using my sword and potions to fend off the entity's attack, but it was like fighting a shadow, my blows passing through it without effect. The chamber seemed to warp and twist around me, the symbols on the wall glowing brighter and brighter. Just when I thought all hope was lost, I remembered something. In my inventory, I had a totem of undying, a rare item I had found during one of my expeditions. I activated it, and a surge of energy coursed through me. The entity recoiled, its grip loosening. I seized the opportunity, using the totem's power to push the entity back. The symbols on the walls began to crack and crumble, the dark energy dissipating. With a final desperate effort, I plunged my sword into the entity's chest. It let out a shriek, a sound of pure agony, and dissolved into a cloud of black smoke. The whispering stopped, and the chamber fell silent. I collapsed to the ground, exhausted. The entity was gone, and I had survived. I slowly made my way back to the surface, the cave crumbling behind me. When I emerged into the daylight, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The forest was alive again, the animals returning to their homes. I knew I had restored the balance, but I also knew I would never forget the entity that had stalked me. From that day on, I was more cautious in my explorations. I made sure to respect the world around me, knowing that there were forces beyond my understanding. And sometimes, when the wind was just right, I thought I could still hear a faint whisper, a reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had faced the entity and lived to tell the tale. I was a survivor, and no shadow could ever take that away from me. As the days turned into weeks, I continued my adventures, always with an eye on the shadows. I rebuilt my base, stronger and more secure than ever. I ventured into new biomes, discovering wonders and dangers alike. But the memory of the entity never faded. It haunted my dreams, a constant reminder of the price of curiosity. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching, waiting for the perfect moment.